Right, we're going to jump straight into it. I'm not going to go into a friggin' 10-minute monologue here about what you're going to learn today. I just want to essentially jump straight into it. This is the episode. This is the one I wish somebody had have handed me when I was sitting at a Paw Patrol table. Yes, an actual Paw Patrol kids table, you know, the ones that, you know, they fucking eat fish fingers and chicken nuggets and just about everything else off. When I was sitting at that table trying to figure out how the hell I was going to build a property business with basically nothing, starting from scratch. So if you are listening into this podcast episode today with maybe a full-time job, you've maybe a bit of money set aside, I'm not talking tens of thousands, it can be tens of thousands, but you know, at least several £1,000s, and you've got a head full of where do I actually start to get this off the ground, then today's episode is going to be very, very useful for you. Let me paint a picture of where I started. I think this is important for context. So I wasn't some property investor, prolific or otherwise. I hadn't inherited any properties. In actual fact, whenever I got into this, my parents were in severe financial trouble. Knock-on effects of 2008, but that's a podcast for another day. I didn't have a mentor who was spoon-feeding me deals or spoon-feeding me investors. I had a corporate job. I was a financial analyst at the New York Stock Exchange, but I was also on maternity leave. I had a new baby at home. I had a relatively small budget, but I also had an enormous amount of pressure to make something work, because the alternative for me wasn't an option. That alternative was golden handcuffs to a certain extent, but it was absolutely no time freedom whatsoever. It was stressful. It was overwhelming at times. And so that wasn't an option that I was prepared to do long term. And the thing that nobody really tells you when you're starting out is the information is not the fucking problem. You can jump on Google and, you know, type in how to source property deals and you will get a million results right now, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's podcasts, whether it's fucking AI books, it's all there. I'm literally adding to the pile here. But information without an actual roadmap is just a whole lot of excruciating noise. I had the knowledge, I had educated myself, but what I didn't have was somebody telling me, do this on this day, in this order, Monday morning, 10 o'clock, here's what you do, here's the missing piece. And that's what I have learned about sitting on money, £5,000, £6,000. The worst thing that you can do is sit on having a bit of money sat there and waiting for confidence to arrive. The second worst part is spending that money on a random commercial developments course or a random serviced accommodations course or a random, I don't know, purchase lease options course from people who haven't done any of these strategies since 2015. You need to put your money where it actually shortens the gap between where you are and your first deal or your next deal. For anybody listening to this podcast who has maybe had a little bit of traction in sourcing, but it's not consistent. So that's exactly what this episode is today. If I was starting from scratch today in 2026 with £6,000 in the bank or more with a full-time job and a limited amount of time, here is precisely what I would do, not what is theoretically possible. This is actually what I would do. Week one, the first thing I would do, and this is free, it costs nothing, is take an hour and change how I think about what it actually is that I am providing and selling. This is mindset. It's going to sound like witchcraft. It's not. But most people start their property journey thinking that they need to buy something. They do not. Not yet. Property sourcing means you find the opportunity. You package the opportunity. You match that opportunity to an investor and you get paid a fee for your service. That is it. You do not need a mortgage. You do not need bridging finance. You don't need a huge capital outlay. You are the person who finds what other people can't and you get paid well, really well for it. Really well. I spoke recently about Tom, one of our mentee clients inside the six-figure sourcing blueprint. He made £25,000 in 7 days doing exactly this. And it wasn't because he had a shit ton of money. It's because he had the right approach. So at week 1, I'm not killing myself looking on Rightmove. I'm not killing myself on Facebook groups arguing about HMOs. I'm getting my head straight on what is the actual business model that I am building. You are a portfolio builder. You are an agent of opportunity. And the people that you're going to build relationships with, like the agents, the letting agents, the mortgage brokers, the probate solicitors, all those guys, they are your entire pipeline. It is not leaflets. It is not letters. Relationships is key here. And that is the shift. And you need to make that early. Then talk about strategy. So let's talk practically. All right, because the title of today's podcast episode is what I would do if I was starting from scratch in 2026 with £6,000 in the bank. So £6,000, full-time job. Here's genuinely how I'd allocate my energy. Not even most of the money yet. More of an energy, should I say. Step 1, you're going to want to pick your patch. But don't try and work the whole country. This is a mistake I see so many people make. They're trying 4, 5, 6 different locations. They're trying to do nationwide, which is a laugh all in itself. You can't do nationwide unless you are a nationwide sourcing company. And to be a nationwide sourcing company, you need to have very deep pockets. So for the sake of this podcast, I know that my listener is not a nationwide sourcing company. Pick a town. Ideally somewhere somewhere you can get to relatively easily, somewhere with decent investor activity, and you're going to own this patch. You're going to become the master of this patch. You're going to become the go-to person in this patch. Now, in terms of owning it, I don't mean literally, but in terms of knowledge, relationships, presence, you are going to be the person that the agent thinks of when something lands on their desk. Really important. Step 2, this is where people fall down. They send emails, they make one phone call, they get a minor rejection, and then they decide it doesn't work. Literally. Oh, I made a phone call. Oh, I got rejected. And so what? Trust me, this works. You're just doing it wrong. I could walk into 10 estate agents and 10 letting agents in my patch in the first 2 weeks. Not to pitch, not to sell, but to introduce myself, to start a conversation, to find out what's causing them a headache right now. What is the agent's pain points? What are they seeing in the market? What are their stumbling blocks? What are they struggling to shift? What landlords are approaching them who need to sell? What properties are sitting on their books longer than they would ideally like? You want to become useful to them first, not the other way around. They don't owe you anything at this moment in time, and some people need to get that into their head. I literally got my pipeline from a single email conversation with an agent. That was it. One relationship, one conversation that turned into a deal that changed the trajectory of my business. That is not a fluke. That is a model. Repeat that. It's not a fluke. It's the model you need to follow. The third thing I would do is start building your investor list. While you're building agent relationships, you need to know who you're sourcing for. So in tandem, I'm talking to investors. I'm attending networking events. Side note, property networking events is like going into a sea of piranhas, right? Lots of property networking events. I would recommend more niche networking events, whether it's BNI, whether it's charity networking events, professional networking events. I would seek those out. Just be fully aware. Side note, the property networking events are filled with people looking for the money. They're filled with egos. They're filled with turkey teeth. They're filled with Rolexes that are likely fake, and people who want you to see them getting into their Range Rover at the end of the night. I try and run away from property networking events at every given opportunity. LinkedIn, you're going to want to be on there. Local Facebook groups, you're going to want to be on there. I would be having conversations. I'm finding out what are people looking for, and I'm going to build a database. You don't need 50 investors, you don't need 500. You need between 3 to 5 serious investors who trust you and buy deals when you bring them. That is it. Now, where does the £6,000 actually go? Well, you're going to want to look at your compliance setup first. You do need to be legally registered with HMRC for anti-money laundering and data protection and your insurance. It's not glamorous, but it's also not optional, and it also doesn't cost a fortune, and it also is not the minefield that a lot of people out there try to make it out to be. It's box ticking exercise, and you follow the step-by-step instructions, and it should cost you anything between £900 to £1,100. Box ticking exercise, do it and move on. Then you're going to want to keep a bit of a cushion, because building a business takes a bit of time, and you don't want to be making decisions, from a place of panic. So keep £500-600 held back in reserve. But here's the honest truth about the rest of that £6,000. The single highest leverage thing that I could do with that money, if I was starting from scratch in 2026, and if I was to be completely honest with you, it's not to spend 3 years figuring this out through trial and error. It's to get around someone who's already done it, who already has the systems, who already has the investor database, and who already knows what actually works in 2026. And then you are compressing years into about 90 days. Education is not a cost. It is genuinely the fastest route between you and where you want to be. The people who treat it like a luxury are the ones that are still researching years from now, and I know plenty of these people. The people who treat education like an investment are the people who are sending me voice notes saying, I've just signed my next investor, I've just collected $5,000 this weekend, I've just made 20 grand, I've just done 40 grand, I've just put a 30 grand fee in place. They're the people sending me WhatsApps to say, we've just had our accounts back and we've made 6 figures from a standing start in the program. Thank you. John, another one of my mentee clients, he closed his first deal in 5 weeks. Jess, she closed her first deal and made £5,000 in her first 4 weeks. And it's not because these people are special. They're great people. And I get on like a house on fire with both of them. But it's not because either of them were special. And it's not because they had chunks of cash. And it's not because they had, inside connections. But it's because they stopped going around in circles and got a proper map. That is what the money is for. And I want to be very straight with you for a second, because most people who say they want to do this and they want to, maybe replace their salaries through property sourcing or get a bit of freedom, time, flexibility back into their day-to-day. Most people who say they want it, they don't. They don't. And it's not because they can't. It's because they get to week 2 and nobody's replied to their emails, or they got a no and they decide it's not working. Pathetic. I'm talking to you. Pathetic. It is working. You just haven't given it long enough. This is a relationship business. Relationships take time. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you'll make 20k in your first month, because I don't know your situation. I don't know your patch. I don't know what your starting point is. But what I will tell you is that the people who are consistent, who show up, who follow up, who go back to the agent for a 3rd time and a 4th time, they are the people who are collecting the 10 grand a month, the 15 grand a month, the 9 grand a month, the 11 grand a month, and more. But the people who quit, it's almost like they're 2 inches from gold. They quit, they throw in the towel right before they strike gold. Every time. I've been doing this 9 years and I can see it blindfolded. And you've got a massive advantage that you probably don't even realise. You've got a full-time income. So you're not desperate. You're not trying to replace your salary in 30 days, which you're not going to do anyway. You're not doing it on a wing and a prayer. So you can actually build this property solidly without, overwhelming pressure to make money now, distorting any of your decisions. That's a privilege and you should use it. I started this business at a Paw Patrol table. I am not joking. That was my office. A box nursery room. That is where my portfolio building business was born. And from there, we've gone on to find the 6-figure source and blueprint. This wasn't all done in a flashy London office. This wasn't done in a fancy hippie co-working space, with exposed bricks and oat milk lattes. It wasn't. I started this at my son's, a kid's table with limited time. I will remind you, maternity leave, relatively limited budget, but a lot to get done on that maternity leave. And the reason I'm telling you that, and I repeat that every single time, is because I want you to understand that your starting point is not finish line. The table that I sat at doesn't matter. The postcode that I was in doesn't matter. The fact that you've got a full-time job and you can do this, or maybe only do it in the evenings and weekends, none of that disqualifies you. None of it. What does disqualify you is deciding that you need everything to be perfect before you start. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, it never will be. And I will repeat that, it never will be. So here's what I want you to do after this episode. And I don't want you to do it next week. And I don't want you to do it when you've done a wee bit more research. I want you to do it today when you listen to this podcast episode. I want you to pick your patch or refine your patch if it's not working. I want you to write down 10 estate agents and 10 letting agents in that area. And I want you to walk into the first one this week. That's your homework. One action, one step. That is the beginning of the map. And look, if you are sitting there and you're listening to me and you're thinking, right, I've got some money set aside, I'm ready to move, I just don't want to waste the next 2 years going around in circles, or the next 6 months going around in circles. That's exactly the conversation that I have with people before they join our program. Not a pitch, but a proper look at where you are, what you've got, and whether what I do and how I do it is the right fit. If it is, great. If it isn't, I'll tell you that too. So what I'll do is I'll put a direct link to have a private conversation with me in the show notes directly below this episode. Feel free to use that and let's come and have a conversation. I will see you guys next week.